Welcome back to Screaming Creativity. My name is Rob Reilly from the WPP Corporation for Advertising Excellence. I have two fantastic guests here, sitting kind of far apart from each other, but close enough in spirit, I believe. The first is Laura Maness, seasoned veteran, according to the cards, from Havas, Leo Burnett, FCB, a passion for storytelling, creativity, and innovation. She's the global CEO of the Gray Corporation. And joining her is her new creative partner of maybe a month. He has won over 20 gold lions, 20 silver lions, 18 bronze from Cannes Lions, has created some of the most iconic brand campaigns. I mean, what else can I say about Gab Schmitt that hasn't been said by very esteemed people in the world? You are a gentleman, a scholar, and a fantastic human, and I can't believe I have both of you in the same place. And you're probably like, why don't I get my own slot? Well, we're out of money, and this is the only time we had left. This is it. No. I spent a lot of time talking about the reason why creativity is successful or not is because of the CEOs. And no matter if it's Gab or myself, if the CEO doesn't want creativity, it doesn't happen. Mark Reed convinced me to join WPP because he says he wants to be the most creative company in the world, which is pretty easy for me to join. So welcome, gang.
Thank you.
How are you feeling? It's the 106th birthday of Gray. Tell us about that, Laura. It's the 106th birthday of Gray. Don't tell us year by year. But what does that mean?
It's incredible. I was reflecting on this because it was around this time last year that I answered the call and got started just a month after the celebration of Gray's inception. And it's just a phenomenal day to think about what our founders went through against all odds to cultivate this creative culture that we're so fortunate and privileged to get to lead and carry the torch. I think about them walking into the office building on Fifth Avenue and what that must have felt like to turn the key every day.
What year was it?
Come on, he's going to do the math.
1918? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
What is it?
If it's 106.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody with a calculator out
Famously
there?
effective since 1917.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Is there a party? Is there a cake? What's happening?
Work is happening.
Work is happening, yeah. Gab Schmitt, always on brand for me. I love that. Gab, you've joined the party a couple months ago, and it's the 106th birthday, but you actually talked to me about loving Gray's platform tagline of famously effective. Why? What attracted you to that?
Well, because it's a very clear articulation of what I believe the whole industry should be doing. Yes, we're here to be creative. Yes, we're here to have fun. But if we don't put intention towards that and do that in service of our clients and their businesses and the growth of their businesses, then we're artists, which is amazing. But it's not what we're doing here. So when you talk about famously effective ideas, it's a very succinct way of merging those two worlds. But to me, the most exciting part is that it's not just a clever kind of sentence. It actually works. If you look at the most famous work that happens around the industry, it doesn't have to be about Gray only. It is famously effective work. One thing feeds the other. So that's why I love it.
How did you two meet? I feel like, I know a little bit of the story, but, listen, things happen for a reason, and you joined, I don't know, how many months ago? What was your...
Yeah, it was September of 2022.
September, with a giant task of taking this amazing agency into the next level. What was it about Gab, without speaking for you? I think he's amazing. I talked to him a couple times. People like Gab, they're always on our radar. It's like we always know about these guys that are out there, or women are out there. But what was it about that you felt like this is going to be a great partnership?
Well, I knew the reputation of his work, and we didn't quite overlap, but we have FCB in common and, a number of people sort of in common. And I knew of his work. I think it was probably week 2 at Gray. that I met Gab, and we had this just this amazing connection from the word go, and it could have gone on for hours. And we didn't probably talk about work for, I don't know, at least the first hour. We just really got to know each other, and I think his vulnerability and spirit and compassion and values and just a lot of the things that, I think make for a really strong partnership were there, and we were really just kind of getting to know each other, at that point. So,
well, those words, sometimes you hear those words and they sound, trite's not the right word, or Pollyanna a little bit, but like it's true. Like, do you share those same values and the same goals? And I share those with Mark, and that was important for me. He cared deeply about creativity and was honest and and fair, and they're not the qualities you look for. Creative people, we're pretty simple. Don't lie to us, pay us fairly, and, care deeply about creativity. So what was it about for you, Gabriel, that you're like, oh, wow, Laura, this is going to be someone who's your first job as a global CCO, which is a, massive task, being so wildly successful at FCB with, great partners and people like Susan Cradle and, but what was it about Laura? Like, okay, I'm going to bet on this person, because it's really a bet. I think you're taking a bet on each other.
Oh, it is. It is a leap of faith. But it's Laura and I are fairly different in some instances. But it was very clear to me from the get-go that we were extremely no bullshit, and I love that, because when I totally agree with you, there's no success for any creative if their business partners are not ingrained within the same. We have all have the same goals, and to me, it was very clear when we started talking that Laura was on a mission, and she knew what she wanted, and I happened to be the same. So that was great. I want to reinforce something that Laura said that is 100% truth and super important. We did not talk about work for the first several minutes the first time we met.
What did you talk about?
You want to know? Fertility. That was the very first thing we talked about.
I mean, that's how I open all my conversations. It's always fertility.
You asked. Me and my wife were going through IVF processes, and I was... I met her and started talking about it, and I'm very passionate about this. And I think as an industry, we are not supporting people the way we could, and we have to do something about it. And I stopped after 10 minutes. I go, hi,
and you were hooked. You're like, this guy loves fertility. This is my
creating
person.
amazing work, creating life.
I mean, birth to ideas to people or whatever.
There you go.
Honestly, that was Brian. We talked a lot about that, and I think that it's an interesting connection. Something that is kind of surprising, but
I think so many people misperceive, especially as you kind of grow in your leadership. People misperceive vulnerability. And how much of a strength, that can be. And the fact that from the word go, you were just so open, and we just had this kind of connection. It was really powerful.
Did you have any advice? I mean, you have a son. I know he's a hockey player. You're posting on the Instagram, or I don't know, TikTok, or what the hell you're posting on, maybe. And your son, I think he scored a goal, pretty elaborate celebration for the goal. Or the pass. I mean, he did something really
hockey is
interesting.
His lead sport these days.
But do you have any advice? Did you have any advice for Gabriel as like he's going into fatherhood for the first time? In a couple months. I mean,
a couple months.
Couple months.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not birthing the child. I mean, there's no advice like breathe deeply. But
my advice is the same for him, I think, as it is for anyone, and it's not even an advice around gender. It's just the idea that you really can have it all. You have to be willing to be all in wherever you are, and so when your wife is right there giving birth, and you want to be a supportive partner through that journey and in that process, it's okay, to be there and to be all the way there. And at the same time, I've negotiated, deals on the line with procurement, like ignoring some of the most critical moments of my son's life and not feeling guilty about that because, I am committed to being 100% all in wherever I am, and sometimes those lines are blurred, and that's okay. It's like the whole intersectionality of it.
But that's a good lesson for people listening. And again, this is going out to all the WPP employees, but also it's going to be on Spotify, and that you always think the CEOs have it all figured out and it's all the business first, and how do you balance your kids and your family life and your spouse and all those things, and it's not always easy to do. And I think having supportive partners of how you got to navigate Gabriel going for paternity leave and all that, how to the agency keep going on that trajectory you're going on. You've won some new business recently, and the work's getting better and better. So it's having a supportive partner, realizing like, okay, how do we make sure that we don't drop the ball, but also like you have the balance of your personal life.
I think it's such an interesting opportunity to show leadership, right? Laura was one of the very, very, very first people who I told about the pregnancy, because we were negotiating this while everything happened at the same time. So I go, Laura, I know we just met again like 2 days ago or whatever for the second time in our lives, but we're pregnant. And I honestly said, I totally understand if that doesn't make any sense because of all the responsibility and the momentum that Gray needs to get to very quickly. I respect that. And she, without skipping a beat, go, no, we're on this together, let's do it. And I respect you so much for doing that.
Oh my God, I was so elated. What a full circle, kind of moment. When you think about it, it's one of those things where sometimes you just have to tell the universe what you want and get after it and just be there when it delivers. And that's exactly what happened.
So I'm going to ask you both the same question, which is, what was that piece of work or something that you saw out in the world? And I assume growing up in Brazil, and that you're like, I feel like I can do this creative thing in advertising. And I'm sure it comes from different places, but what was it for you?
Well, mine was a BBH, or at that point was Neo Gama was the agency in Brazil. It was an Umbro print ad. And honestly, it was a soccer shoe that was cut out on the grass. And I'm not sure what the fuck that thing means.
Yeah.
But I was like, what is this? And I was just Googling now to show you, but I couldn't find it. I know it won a silver in 2009, I think, or no, earlier, like 2001 or something like that. And I remember looking at that, and it was a little bit of a piece of art. It felt like art to me, and it felt I was hooked to by that image. And I thought that thing was so interesting. So on that is a more high-end end of the answer. The rest of it is, growing up in the 80s and 90s in Brazil, for some reason advertising is a huge thing there, and advertising people were kind of famous in Brazil.
Washington Oliveto got kidnapped.
Yeah, Washington, exactly, from Washington Oliveto, exactly. And when I would watch his things, his things from his agency there in Brazil, they were so incredibly popular and entertaining. The entertainment value was already there, although it was 60-second TV spots, pretty much. And I would love that. And you would see famous singers in Brazil referring to advertising things that were happening. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. Like, what is this?
Yeah, no one in the U.S. cares as much as
this is super fun.
In other countries.
And then later, my father used to work in marketing. And I'm going way off your question, but
no, that's fine. It's fine. I'm used to this.
He was working at Henkel, and he approved an ad from a creative lead in Brazil, and that thing won a bronze in Cannes in 1998. And I remember the bouquets of flowers arriving at my parents' house, and I look at it and I go, "That's fun. There's something fun in this industry, Yeah. And then I started digging on it. I was writing, was a teenage poet. A bad one, and here we are.
Teenage Poet. In fact, that's a good name for a band.
Yeah.
I'll ask you the same question, Laura. What was it? What was that moment, or did you just fall into this by accident?
I think probably some of the more influential stuff from the earliest that I can remember is like the power of advertising to kind of really change behavior. Even as a kid, like I remember the poison labels, like the Mr. Yuck. Like opening up underneath the kitchen sink, and there'd be these little stickers of like Mr. Yuck or Nancy Reagan's kind of, just say no, and just like really movement driven kind of stuff. And it was like, wow, like the power of kind of communicating. And this was even, before getting into to creativity as a business. And so, all the jingles and the taglines and the resonance that
So,
that
I mean,
has.
are you saying jingles are making their way back to gray? Famously effective through jingles. Is the new-
Welcome to Spotify.
Snap,
Yeah,
crackle,
well,
pop,
yeah,
and stop,
yeah.
drop, and roll, and just like all these things that kind of stick with you. And
Yeah.
it's like, this is kind of incredible. But probably, I think from an ad perspective, so my dad was always very like mechanically inclined and just like has an engineering mind, and got into kind of coding back in the earliest, like I think we had a Commodore 64 and he was on BASIC, like coding a program that would post our swim meet times and outcomes for all the parents in the swim community. And it was like this advanced way of like getting the scores to post like through. And I sort of observed that at the youngest age, just thinking like, oh, like, what's this computer thing all about? And then I remember just like being desperate for an Apple. And he was like an IBM kind of evangelist. And I was having to be that one in the family that was like, no, I want to be the creator. I love to draw. I was always into art and all that stuff. And so I can remember like that moment where we got our first Apple, and then just like 1984 and, the original, all of that.
Well, I think that's why you're probably a great CEO for advertising. You care about creativity, and you love it, and you have the artistic bent to you, and all those things. So you mentioned fun. It looks like fun. Now, I think a lot of people will say the business isn't as fun as it used to be, or it's not fun anymore. Like, what do you two have to do to make great? Not only just like, because I think we have 3 benchmarks now. We have a financial benchmark that's always looming. We have a creative benchmark. We got a CEO and Mark Reed saying, I want to be the most creative company in the world. We all care deeply about it. But also it's a human benchmark. How are we the best place to work, the most fun place to work? Because COVID has proven that we've got to be, agencies and companies that care about people and also like, make it fun, So what do you two do to get, your company to be the most fun place to work besides the most creative? I'm throwing this at you guys. This is an adult podcast. We've said that many times over the last few weeks, that this is an adult podcast. So these questions are not softballs.
Well, one of the misnomers, I think, is that, you have to kind of cultivate fun in the periphery of the business. And what we fail to think about sometimes is it's actually creating and crafting together the energy that comes from having a breakthrough and making something and putting work into the world and winning a pitch, and the momentum that creates. All that fuel is really just growth. And it's so much fun in the process of it. And I think, through COVID and trying to figure out what's the future of work and what's the office experience and how do we kind of create fixtures to provide these modules or containers of fun. It's like the fun is why we're in this business. So come on and be part of this energy and momentum. So I think it happens 1% every day in the partnership and what we're doing. It's not through some party.
We're not rolling in ping pong tables and that's
Pilates at lunch hour and all that stuff.
But I think that there's a lot of, to build on that, there's a lot of non-fun things that need to happen so that the fun can be there. And I think there's a lot of process that you need to put in place to make sure that briefings and relationships with clients are happening in the right way so that you get the right types of business problems and they get articulated in the best possible way into briefings and that leading to creative. If this process is not well set up, it just gets messy. And we are all messy by nature, kind of. So we gotta make sure that the process is there so people can then get fun through this process. And then when you get to the strategic side of things and then the creative development of things, then we have time and we are free to have fun. Otherwise, it's just chaos. And chaos, it's hard to thrive on chaos. Very few people can do that.
Yeah, one of the biggest, I think, killers of fun is bureaucracy and hierarchy. And we're cultivating this kind of ownership mindset and this entrepreneurial spirit. And there's so much freedom in this framework to have those moments of fun. But you're right, it takes structure and clarity and cohesion and singularity of vision and focus and a lot of the things that I think kill the spirit and get in the way of people having a great time.
So you talk about, Gabe, being vulnerable, which I appreciate, and I've talked a lot about things that I'm vulnerable about, whether it's, imposter syndrome early on or having an eating disorder when I was younger, all those things that I talk about, and I think that makes me better at this job, because I think there's always this, you need to show a tough veneer. Like, what's the thing that scares Laura Maness every morning? Told you that. I am not messing around,
Rob
pal.
is
And
deep.
it better not be margin. Don't say margin. Please don't say margin.
My dog is not named Margin, but we might have a CFO who has one.
That'd be actually amazing, a dog named Margin.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's a dog named Margin. Yeah, what's the thing that, it's on your mind?
Why does the world need gray in 10 years, 15 years, 50 years from now? How are we indispensable? How are we making such an impact through the work that we're doing, through the people and the next generation that we're bringing along, and through our openness that we can be sitting here celebrating
That's a great answer.
the next birthday.
Yeah.
And this business has converged so much, and there's so much overlap, and brands are constantly in an identity crisis. A lot of agencies are trying to figure out, like, what's their thing, what's their special differentiation. I think the thing that's really meaningful and encouraging is, like, we know exactly who we're for brands and people who want to accelerate their growth. We have to continuously evolve in order to do that. And so I guess what excites me and scares me simultaneously the most is irrelevance.
Great answer. Can you top that, Gab?
Yeah, rats.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I'm scared of
Mic
shit.
mic drop. Yeah, you're scared of. Oh, you're scared of rats.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
like in New York City because of the rats.
I don't know why I live in
In
New York City.
advertising.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat germophobic living in New York City. It doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah, Brazil. I wouldn't call that, Tokyo. You know what I mean when it comes to cleanliness.
Oh my
You're
gosh,
Brazil.
you could never
There you
visit
go.
Mart.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned, and what scares me is that people don't see what's in it for them in this company. Yes, for the clients, but also internally. I think, we all come from a generation where we gave a shit so much for what we were doing. And to me, is my life, and I love it, and I respect it, and I see the benefit and the values of it, not only from a personal point of view, but from an economy point of view. I strongly, truly, wholeheartedly believe in what we're doing here. And I think it's, as a global lead, it's a challenge to make sure that people feel inspired and encouraged by that vision and really partake on it, because it's a different generation, it's different people, it's different regions, different cultures. And I think having somewhat of a harmonious vision that people can really feel and believe on, I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah, I think we forget to remind everybody that what we do is important. Like, we are one tribe. I root for all agencies beyond WPP because in the end, like, we need to constantly prove our value to CFOs and boards of companies that marketing is important. So we're in the same boat as our clients and brand partners. And I do think the pandemic will be looked back upon, and I've said this before, as the most creative time in our business. I think brands played such a role in people's lives. When if the government went out of business in the U.S. during the pandemic, we'd be like, it's the government. And if Walmart went out of business or Verizon, we would have lost our minds because it provided such stability. And being agents of these brands, along with our marketing partners at the brands, like, I felt like we did a really good job of keeping everybody stable and being that bedrock of a foundation for people during a time when everybody was freaking out a bit. We forget how valuable we are to the economy, but also people's psyche and belief in brands. It's such a great opportunity for brands to really play that incredible role in people's lives.
I totally agree. One of the most encouraging things, I think, starting last year was to see what an advantage Gray had in terms of its borderless strategy and philosophy, even pre-pandemic, like starting back in probably 2017 when the studios were connecting, and everything just accelerated through this experience. So I think you're absolutely right. Like, it is going to be looked back upon as probably one of the most creative times, and it's also an inflection point for the coming together. There's been a bit of a Western arrogance and maybe New York dominance, just given the size and scale of what New York means to the world. But some of the best creative that we have is coming from all parts of the world, and some of the best talent that we have that we've been exposed to.
So what can we learn? And that's a great point. We all know that the U.S. has a lot of the money here, a lot of the budgets, a lot of the growth for us in particular. But to your point, like, a lot of the best creativity is coming from outside of the U.S. and frankly, beyond London and the U.S. and Australia, places where the work was the funniest and the work was kind of the edgiest is not happening anymore. So how do you balance, focusing on some of those other parts that are outside the U.S., but also understanding that the U.S. is where our growth is, and we need to get the creativity better and better in the U.S. I mean, it's a tough balance being a new global CCO who spent the last 5 years making FCB the #1 creative agency in North America.
How do you balance? You balance it. You have to.
Great answer. I love that. So the trick, everybody, is you balance it.
You just do it.
The trick is to do it. No,
be intentional about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To be intentional about it, because we talk a lot about that. New York is incredibly important for us for all the obvious reasons and for the size of it. We have a global vision. And we want to make sure that people in Bangladesh are as excited by what the vision is as the people in New York or London or Brazil or whatever. I think it's in the small things. Yes, we can go and do town halls and whatnot, but I think Laura and I are very intentional in the way in which we're showing up and trying to show up to everyone around the world. It's in some details in the messaging. It's in the signature of the emails. It's how we're talking about something that happened in a place that sometimes is not there. It might be a little bit overlooked. And because, the success of Gray in Croatia for us is incredibly important, not only for financial reasons, but because that means there's a pocket in the world that sometimes might not be, the place in the world where everyone is paying attention to, that is doing amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And what better way of really establishing a network than making those overlooked places, blossom and have a new hub there? For example, that's awesome. And then that's good for the business as well. And then if you're going to attract more people that go there, then it becomes a pretty interesting ecosystem. So I think it's never forgetting, it's never doing something in the detriment of the other. It's not everything about New York. It's not about everything about the globe. New York, by the way, is part of this planet. So it is a unified vision for everyone. Coming from co-running an office in New York in my previous job at FCB, I know how big it is. And I do believe there's no such thing as strong network without a strong New York office. I think that's a kind of a universal truth in what we're doing. But if the other places are not, coming through and doing things in the best possible way as well, then you become a little bit unbalanced, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same for WPP. I mean, we don't have a center, we don't have a giant creative center. We have myself, and I talked Eric, and Tosh, the creative excellence is not a big thing on purpose. We have to bet on the agencies, all the agencies. I mean, obviously, we've got great creative networks, and you're part of and the AKQA group, and such an interesting combination of the two is when you get that together, it's sort of on paper it's unbeatable. Your partnership, I think, with the CCOs of AKQA, and I do think we don't talk about that as much as we should, because man, when you get those two agencies together that have such strong cultures, it's an unbeatable combination. So
yeah, and in 2020, when Gray and AKQA joined forces, it was the first time in a while that Gray was growing again. And when you think about like Volvo as an example, and some of the work that that we do together, it's combining strengths and is really, really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing it more and more around, whether it's Gray with Wonderman or Thompson, and then
or across our health business,
across the health business, and again, there's so much growth in health, and it's such an interesting thing, the creativity. So let's talk about health forever is that's not where the most creative ideas are coming from, but is it changing?
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it changing in Cannes, but yes, there's, again, when there's a category at Cannes, the creative work magically shows up, right? But is it really being felt deeply into the network?
I think, I've been here for a couple months, and I was not that well versed in that world, and I've been very, very close to a lot of different processes that we're going through now on some new business stuff and some client related work. And yes, on one hand, I don't know all the rules. I don't have all the institutional knowledge that some of our people have, obviously. But to me, they're all business problems, or even more human problems that you are solving. So I see no difference between solving this with brilliance between that or packaging goods or whatever it is. And we're pushing, and we already see some of the results. I do think that when Cannes comes up with a category or a whole, festival for health, it obviously pushes the agenda.
Yeah.
And that is a good thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's a
the
bad
world gets
thing.
better. So I'm all in. You know,
Yeah.
I've had, honestly, only today I already had 2 health-related meetings with and actually seeing work and helping shape it is that important for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what do you say to the young people looking to get into advertising that have just been on the fence, like, it doesn't seem like it's for me? What do we tell them, like, this is for you? You know, either stick with us, you know, whether it's WPP or somewhere else, but, like, we need to attract more interesting voices, outside voices, diverse voices to our business. Like, what's the message from the CEO of, you know, one of the best networks?
Creativity and curiosity is what attracted me to this business. Teamwork and laughter is what keeps me in it. It's a privilege to be able to solve these big world-changing business problems through this energy, you know, that we're harnessing. And it's my biggest hope is that we can continue to champion this ultimate team sport and get more people into the business and allow that to shape the future of you know, what it becomes.
Think about your day. You know, you gather with friends and you get a problem to solve. You are fairly paid to do so. And if you do it really, really well, you get to do some pretty interesting trips around the world and win some stuff.
Yeah.
And contribute for the economy. I mean, it is a very good job.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to get distracted by, again, all the chaos that sometimes happens in advertising agencies, and it does happen. But in our best days, it's amazing. I agree with Laura. It's a privilege.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff that I'm just in reflecting on, some of the stuff I'm most proud of. I would think that I would immediately jump to what's the most recognized work or what's been the most awarded that I've been lucky to be a part of. And I think as I reflect back,
what is it? Yeah. You
on
brought
my
it up.
career, it really is these businesses that are in trouble or in crises. And, you know, it's all the work that we do to contribute to helping sustain their future viability. Like even the fact that, you know, the business is still performing and growing is a point of pride. And I think a lot of the work that we do is transforming enterprises and opening up, you know, economic benefit for people and helping drive inclusivity and just all the things that we kind of talk about on a platform in advertising that we, you know, aspire to be making a difference and not just kind of driving consumerism and winning awards. It's like, you know, there's a lot of stuff that will never have a trophy attached to it, but is absolutely correlated with some of the greatest, you know, successes inside corporations. And that's the stuff that makes me
I mean,
like
I
the
think that's
most
what
proud.
makes you too so special is that, like, you both want to run into the fire.
Yeah.
And you think these jobs, and maybe the old version was the CCO and the CEO, you know, showed up to the meetings and shook hands and kissed babies. And it's kind of the opposite of what it is today to be a modern CCO and a CEO, and certainly a team is like you have to run into the fire, you know, and I feel that's why you guys will
Like when Rob Reilly calls and says, meet me tomorrow.
Oh, well, listen, you know,
This team
we wanna
shows
do it.
up.
So you took a career break in 2021 to do a sustainability leadership program at Harvard. Can you talk about this a bit? I mean,
I wish it was
anytime you say Harvard, you're like, oh, wow, CEO is very smart.
I wish it was a break. It was a lot of late nights.
So wait, you did it while working?
I did.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
And the reason was, the impetus for it was, so I was on a journey for a couple of years, and a lot of people, myself included, misperceive B Corp largely as a sustainability movement. And that's one component of it. But it's everything from how you pay your workforce and clients and government. And it's really just a blueprint for driving sustainable business growth and making better decisions as a leader. Becoming a public benefits corporation, I felt in a position to start to influence clients on their own ESG initiatives. And I found through my advocacy of the B Corp movement that it was opening up, you know, deep conversations that I wanted to cultivate a lot more substance around, not just on a top layer consultative approach, but having really, you know, deeply gone through the kind of behavioral and change management process. So I was lucky enough to be part of an invite only. It was a 50-person cohort of world leaders, largely in the sustainability field. Talk about vulnerability. Hi, I'm in advertising, and everyone on the call is, I'm the chief sustainability officer for Boeing, and I'm over here in this other category. But it was one of the most profound experiences I've, you know, had as a leader, and I think it definitely is shaping the transformation agenda, not just for our industry, but really, role modeling the kind of stuff that we want to inspire for really all industries, not just the B Corp as being one aspect of that, but really just making, more sustainable decisions. One of the first things, I think, coming into Gray, didn't cost any money, didn't take any time, was just to remove single-use plastic, and it happened almost instantaneously across every single office, 50 countries. These small things add up over time, and
well, you talk about being curious is like you have to be curious about it, and like you have to put the work into it.
Yeah, and the other thing is just as a board director, you find yourself in these boardrooms across the country, and the conversations are starting to lean into these places, and it's not about communication and being performative about these goals. It's really about being able to contribute more meaningfully, having done some of the hard work that was a part of the program, and then some modern board governance training out in Stanford was the back end of that executive education experience. But it was really incredible.
Gab, where did you go to? What was your Harvard class in? I just want to make sure that you guys are on the same level now.
I used to play soccer in Brazil.
Yeah, goalie. You were a goalie.
I learned
How did goalie teach you about being part of this business? But I mean,
it actually did.
Listen, I think it's important for people to know that you put that training in, you put that work in to be a way more informed and better leader for our corporation and the CEO of Gray. But I don't know if you have a comparative thing to that. Well, I mean, you were a goalie in soccer for the national youth team. Yeah,
the national youth team. So I learned how to deal with pressure from early on. But I did do the Berlin School as an MBA.
I love this.
And I call it Berlin School.
Explain to the audience the Berlin School.
It's called the Berlin School of Creative Leadership. It's an MBA that started 20 years ago for creatives in advertising only, and then it opened the aperture a little bit, and you find creatives for all sorts of fields. And it's an MBA that teaches you, in summary, to lead yourself, to then lead your company, and then lead your industry. I call it a hippie MBA, and honestly changed my life. It was amazing. So.
Well, the combination of you two, I think, is going to change the lives of a lot of your employees, and then hopefully change the trajectory of the brands we're working with and you guys are personally working with. Now it's time for the rapid fire questions. We're going to wrap it up, and Jonathan says go fast. We're going to alternate. I'll pay the penalty, the meal penalty. No, I'm kidding. Last song you listened to, Gab?
I was at Beyonce concert the other night, so whatever it was.
Crazy in Love?
Yeah, Crazy in Love, something like that. Yeah.
I got it.
Who runs the world, girls? Yeah.
Who runs the world, girls? Hidden secret talent, Laura Maness.
I play the piano.
Oh, wow. Well, or
you be the judge of that.
You see the difference? My answer would be I can peel an orange very, very well and very quickly. So,
yeah, it's like
I fed my family throughout COVID and nobody died.
Oh, that's good.
When no restaurants in New York City were open.
Wow, that's good. If you could hang out with a fictional character, who would it be?
Dorian Gray.
So deep. So deep.
Did you have these questions in advance?
No.
Okay, 3 items on your bucket list. 1 item on your bucket list.
Wow, this podcast. No, having a podcast one day.
Oh,
there you go.
Well, you can take over from me.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, favorite social media app. If you had one app to choose for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Visual, so Instagram.
Instagram. A lot of people have said that. Okay, last question for both of you. You go first. One piece of advice for your teenage self.
Do not forget to have fun while you're feeling all the pressure. Just like it's all good, and you don't know what you're doing, but nobody does. So just keep going.
Smart.
You're already everything you want to be. Just go be it.
Jeez. Deep. That's how we end this podcast. It's called Screaming Creativity. I'm Rob Reilly. Thank you to Spotify. Thank you to the WPP team. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you so much.
Screaming Creativity is produced by WPP and Hogarth and edited by Rob C. Ward at BCW.